Thanks to our friends at The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/ASYM for the top 10 stocks to buy right now. Virgin Galactic's first commercial spaceflight is now a couple of weeks behind us, and the market doesn't seem to be all that impressed long term. If you might remember, the stock ran up before the spaceflight actually happened. When it took place, the stock actually dropped to where it was before the initial run up. So, kind of one of those weird dynamics that happens with a company like this: buy the rumor, sell the news. That's exactly what happened with Virgin Galactic. And actually, this has happened over and over again for the company. But those of us who are long-term investors are thinking about, what does the future look like? And we found out this week that August 10th is going to open the next flight window for the second commercial flight. This will be the first flight that's at private customers. So space tourism. The first flight was a group of Italian researchers. And so this is going to be more of a traditional flight, people hopefully enjoying their time in space. So I want to dig into what those details are and then what we should be looking for as investors. My name is Travis Hoyam. Thanks for watching Asymmetric Investing. Please subscribe here on YouTube for all my content and check out my deep dive on Virgin Galactic in the show notes. I got that in my newsletter, Asymmetric Investing. I think you'd enjoy that if you are a shareholder in Virgin Galactic. And let's get to the recent announcement. This is Virgin Galactic, a second commercial space flight. This one, it says here the flight window will open August 10th, 2023. That's usually open for a few days and mostly depends on weather. Take a space flight like this if the weather is really bad or it's very windy. So that's why there's generally a range of a few days of when this can take place. But this is right on target with what management has said, is that in August, this should start a monthly space flight cadence for Virgin Galactic. Details of the flight itself have not been announced. So names of the crew and pilots, that will be done at a later date. And they did confirm that this will be 3 private passengers. This is something that management has said in the past, is that these early flights on the current spacecraft are probably going to be 3 private passengers and then 1 Virgin Galactic employee in the back. There are 2 pilots in the front, 4 people in the back. And this will be to test the experience and then also give them the experience of flying in space, so that the people who are training the next group of astronauts that are paying Virgin Galactic can say, hey, you know what? I have done this and this is what it's like. Now, from a stock standpoint, you can see that the reaction after the flight was pretty dramatic. By early July, shares were down in that $3.70, $3.80 range. And that was after spiking pretty consistently right before the flight. But again, this happened in March when they started testing flights again. The stock jumped and then it fell when they actually completed those successful flights. So a couple of things to think about with the stock price and what we're looking for with earnings. One is that we know Virgin Galactic filed to sell another $400 million in shares. It already completed the most recent registration for selling shares. I think sold about $160 million worth of shares earlier in the second quarter. But it's possible that management sold another chunk of shares even before the spaceflight. I wouldn't be surprised to see a big number there, but we will learn what that looks like in earnings. But the bigger thing to think about with earnings is, when do we start to see more revenue coming in the door? Bringing 3 passengers into space once a month is not going to be a significant amount of revenue or profits, if there is any profits to be had with the currently designed spacecraft. We're going to probably need to get to that Delta class spacecraft, which isn't really due until 2026. But are they ramping 1? Are they going to bring 2 or 3 or 4 online? These are the kind of questions that management's going to have to answer. They're also going to have to fund that growth. It costs $50 to $60 million to build one of these spacecraft. So how are they going to fund that? Are they going to use this $400 million sale? Are they going to sell some convertible bonds? There's a lot of different options that management has, but they need to finance the business long term, get through the next 4 or 5 years, and also show that they're on that path to profitability and actually generating cash flow from the business. These are all the details that I'm going to be looking for when earnings are released. That's probably not going to be till later in August, but these are the things that are on my mind as we start to get information about the next space flight. These are all little check boxes that we can look at as investors and say, okay, they're doing the things that they need to do. They're getting people into space. People are enjoying their time. They think it's worthwhile to spend the kind of money to do that. Now, how can we ramp up that production? Those are the kinds of things that management is going to have to answer. So that's the way that I'm looking at this. Getting another flight completed in early August is going to be a step in the right direction, but there's a lot more steps that the company needs to go through. And one of those is probably going to have to be selling more stock. So actually, this is one of those ironic cases where a higher stock price would actually increase the chances that Virgin Galactic is actually going to get to that finish line, get to profitability. A lower stock price makes it harder to raise money. That's just the reality of the market. But that's my take on the last week or so with Virgin Galactic. I'll be back here on YouTube with more on this company as news comes out and anything big that happens with the stock. I will be happy to cover it here. So subscribe to this channel if you're interested in this stock. And like I said, check out that deep dive on Virgin Galactic in the show notes. I think you'll enjoy that. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you next time.